Oi, 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 YouTube. I hope that you have unclenched your jaw and had some water today. It's good to see you. Today we're discussing the Trickster, the state of the PTB, comparisons to other killers, and what I think needs to change for this killer to sort of really shift or change anything about the game, all right? Now, there's no doubt that when the Twins came out, the Twins were a brand new thing, a new style of gameplay. Controlling two people at once was crazy, all right, whether they get played a lot or not. Now we have the Trickster, a killer that seems to be a hodgepodge mismatch of Plague and Huntress, right? So I usually say this killer is very similar to Plague, in my opinion, in the fact that you have to get very close to make a really good use of your knives. It takes 8 knives to lacerate somebody into a new health state. The problem I have with the amount of knives required is that it's similar to Plague. It's similar to the way that Plague has to run up and vomit on somebody, right? And get them sick and get them broken. The difference is the laceration meter decays and goes away within 15 seconds of your last knife impact, which means that, like, unlike Plague can vomit on somebody and get them sick, and then they can spread that sickness or become broken where they can't heal. All of this stuff, Plague has all these implications to somebody not healing. This guy, Trickster, doesn't have, there's no pressure with the ability. If you choose to use your ability on somebody, you basically have to stick to that person, which kind of makes it make no sense because you're supposed to get as close as Plague does get, right? And vomit, right? The way that Plague vomits. But at that point, right, why don't just M1 them, right? In this particular case, where you can see on screen, I was able to get like a decent, health state out of the survivor. And so I think that's where you can see like Trickster's gameplay might be getting people between loops. But the problem with that is if you catch them at like any loop that has any height, right? So jungle gyms, things like that, but also around any of the taller loops, the hay bales, things like that, his ability just doesn't matter. You just have to break a pallet, keep moving. So it's kind of weird, right? Huntress, and the reason I think he's a very much like a close range person is because, again, Huntress can huck a hatchet and do 1 health state, like Dunzo, This guy, he has to do 8 knives. The amount of, you will slow down as you throw knives, even if just a little bit. So the amount of time it takes to get 8 knives into somebody, they will find line of sight blockers, right? And so I've thought about it. Do you M1 first and then throw knives? Or do you throw knives and then M1, right? With Plague, you would vomit on somebody till they're broken, M1 them, get the down. Cool. The difference here with Trickster, unlike Plague, right? When Plague breaks somebody with her vomit, they don't get a speed boost. They don't get to like run away really fast. They become broken, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, right? With Trickster, if they become broken via or if they become wounded via the laceration, they get a speed boost. They get to run away as if they got M1'd. So it's like, okay, I used all my knives. I slowed down to use my knives. They get the speed boost up. Now I have to catch up in M1 or catch up and do the same process over again. 8 knives. And if they get 15 seconds of distance between knives, or if I have to reload, the laceration meter completely just decays and nothing matters, right? And that's a problem, right? There's no long-lasting, long-standing implications for using the weapons, the knives. If it's going to take that long to use them, might as well just M1 people, just catch up in M1, right? And just mind game at pallets instead of trying to get all these fancy knife hit at pallets, right? So there's just a lot of sort of things that don't feel very thought out with the ability. When is it supposed to be used and how is it supposed to be used, right? There's a few ideas I have in mind. Laceration meter either sort of charges up, sort of like 99ing a stock with Ghostface, if you will, or it maybe drops to 75%, so it would take like 3 knives to finish somebody off or to top somebody out, right? So maybe you can get it up to where the 7 knives makes it red, and then after the red bar, it 1 more will make them go down a health state. So you could do something like that, right? Where if you get it to the red, then it stays that way. That would be interesting, right? That means that you can kind of prep people and things like that. But also it feels a little weird. With Plague, you can get people really sick and broken, but they can opt to get out of that or not. How would people get out of the laceration stage? I don't know, right? You're taking away some autonomy from the survivors to make the no decay a thing. Do we hate that idea? Is that too much? I don't know. What's the balance there, right? The laceration is a fundamentally flawed system because it decays, right? Because it's basically just hey, don't run up and M1 them, take a lot of time and use 8 knives. You know what I mean? In some particular instances, it would be nice if, you know, if you use the laceration, if they got lacerated enough, maybe they're broken for a minute, something like that. I really don't know. A change you could potentially make to make the knives a little bit more appealing is, and this is a loop I talked about earlier, where you can't hit over any of these obstacles, and the survivor's going to play this smart like 90% of the time. So, but at the end of the day, the laceration thing that you could change would be if they become wounded due to the knives, they just don't get a speed boost, right? Because that speed boost is devastating, right? You can't continue any pressure with that. So interesting thoughts and ideas. You know, the Trickster moves at about like a kind of a 98, 97, something like that % movement speed when they have their blades out and they aren't in a flurry. Maybe we just bump that to 100 so you don't lose any distance while you're, even if you are in a flurry, maybe keeping it at 100%. Because again, it's something like this, you're going to waste a lot of time trying to use your knives. So you're just an M1 killer. I got to loop them, break the pallet, right? So I conceptually am confused by the killer a little bit and how they and how we use their ability, right? Now the last strat that I've noticed is main event, right? Main event is when the screen turns yellow and you could throw at a much faster rate of fire, and you have infinite knives. The problem with main event is after you've thrown and connected 20 knives with survivors, so after 20 knives have entered a survivor, then it activates, and you have about 10 seconds to hit control and like fully activate it. Well, sometimes when I down a survivor, main event wants me to activate it, and I'm like, well, I'm picking somebody up. I'm hooking them. I can't do anything with this. So one thing I've tried to do is 99 main event, if you will. So I've tried to take it and get it to 19 knives, right? And then throw the 20th, activate it, and laser somebody down. And sometimes that works. It's not been too bad, but it's not like a viable strategy. It takes way too long to get 20 knives into somebody, then to activate it. And then again, you have to find a loop or be between a loop where you can activate it. And you know, it's very complicated to do. And I think it seems like main event is bugged in a way. It seems like it doesn't work as it's intended to, because as of now, it, like I said, it just auto activates and then you lose it within 10 seconds. Well, even if you're busy. So, and you also can't break pallets, vault windows, do anything while it's active. So I have concerns about this killer. I think they're weaker than Plague. I think their ability is useless, which makes them a little bit weaker than kind of Legion, in my opinion. At least Legion makes people mend. I don't want Trickster to make people mend because mending isn't fun survivor gameplay, like at all. So what do you guys think? What would make this all work? What would make them work? Because they definitely need a buff. I love them aesthetically. I'm not really asking anyone's opinions on that. But what do you think about the ability and how to make it work a little bit better? Put in the comments down below. I'd love to hear it. And I hope we can get some good results when this thing hits live servers. So thank you guys for being a part of my day. I hope you check out some of the other videos. I hope you have a wonderful one. And I will, I forgot to say it, pray to the entity to see you either on stream or in future comment sections.